So let's talk about Pluto retrograde. So Pluto will station retrograde tomorrow, May 2nd. It's tomorrow morning around 11:30-ish a.m. Mountain Time. So when Pluto goes retrograde, it doesn't affect us in the same way that like the personal planets do when they go retrograde, like Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Those we feel on a personal level very strongly. The other thing to remember about when the outer planets like Pluto go retrograde is that they're generational planets. Pluto, especially being the slowest moving planet, it creates changes over extended periods of time and they affect an entire generation instead of your individual day-to-day life. Now, with this particular one, it's going to be retrograde until October 11th. This is nothing new. Pluto is retrograde for nearly half the year, every single year. So it's not anything to freak out over. It's not anything to stress out over. You're likely to only see major events happen if you have planets in the last few degrees of the cardinal signs, because Pluto will backtrack back into Capricorn for a couple of months this time around. And that would be Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, or Libra. Or if you have personal planets or points in the first couple of degrees of Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, or Scorpio. And chances are pretty good that if that is the case, you've probably already seen something happen since January when Pluto entered Aquarius. It entered January 22nd or 23rd, somewhere in that range. Either that or you have started to see some foreshadowing of changes to come. Okay, so let's talk about what Pluto is in the first place. So Pluto is the planet of power dynamics. It is the planet of change and transformation. A lot of people associate it with death. I tend to associate that a little more with Saturn because Saturn literally stops things in their tracks. Pluto is more a planet of destruction. It tears things down in order to rebuild it. That's why we call it the planet of transformation, because it does create a lot of destruction. But that destruction is for the intent of rebuilding things in a better way. And when we're talking about Pluto in the retrograde motion, that is the destruction phase of a Pluto transit. So you may see some things happen, particularly in your social life, because this is happening in the sign of Aquarius. It could see some things happen in the communities that you're involved in, any groups that you're involved in. You could start seeing some things kind of start to fall apart in those areas if you haven't already. One thing that Pluto likes to do when it's retrograde is it likes to dig up dirt. It will dig up any deep, dark secrets that are hidden and expose them. So I know we've all heard about the year of exposure. It is for everybody, not just people in power or celebrities. You are very likely to start seeing things get exposed in your social life, in your communities, groups that you're involved in, at work with your coworkers, things like that. If you've got some deep, dark secrets that you have hidden, be careful. You might want to just go ahead and start fessing up to them now, because they will be exposed at some point. Especially when we're talking about like shady things, acting out of power dynamics, acting out of a sense of trying to control everything. Pluto also can bring quite a bit of obsession as well. So you can start, you might be seeing some things surrounding obsession start to show their face as well. One of the things to really keep in mind with this, though, is that when planets are retrograde, it's about taking that energy that we are expressing out in the world and turning it inward, right? So this can be really well used for things like shadow work. It's a great time to dig deep within yourself and see what you're still hiding from yourself, what you may still need to work through. Traumas can come up during this time. You could probably see a few trauma triggers from the people around you that kind of force you to dig into yourself deeper and work on healing yourself. Because when Pluto turns back direct, which will happen in October, that's like the phoenix rising, right? So if you're doing all of the work during the destruction process and you're working through things, when things go back direct and we're putting that energy back out into the world, you come back out of it a better person. Talk to anybody that has prominent Scorpio in their chart. They're going to tell you that destruction and rebirth process is hard, but it is very rewarding. You always come out of it much better than what you went into it. This is also a time to look for like your inner power and your inner strength, because it's easy to get lost in power dynamics out in the world and forget what your inner power is and your inner strength. So while Pluto is retrograde, kind of look for in yourself for your inner strength. But overall, this is not something to freak out over. Again, it's only going to like affect you in a major way if it's touching some of your personal planets or points, which would be your angles or even your nodes, possibly. But more likely, this is to show up like out in the world. Now, it will move back into Capricorn in beginning of September, and that's when we will see a little more of a shift from that social life reveal and things like that back into the reveal of things within people that are in positions of power. There's also a likelihood that those that have been struggling to keep some type of power are going to lose that power during this time as well. Let me think about this a bit. Okay. Again, if you don't have any personal planets or points or angles or your nodes in the last couple of degrees of the cardinal signs or the first couple of degrees of the fixed signs, this is likely to just pass you by. Regardless of whether it's directly impacting you or not, it is still an excellent time to do shadow work and look for your inner power and your inner strength. So I hope that is helpful. Please go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this, and I will continue to do this.